Hello everyone, so I'm here to show you guys what I've done to make some 3DS style renders for Pokemon. And I'm also mainly doing this for the Generation 8 Pokemon that are not on the 3DS, because there's no other way to get 3DS style renders of these Pokemon otherwise, unless you like import them into 3DS, which that might not work out as well, but it's not my expertise. So this is all done entirely in Blender, except for a few things, which we will be starting off with. We have to do some prep work with the models before we actually get into Blender. Oh, by the way, this will have a spoiler of one of the starters' final evolution. By the way, just letting you know if you aren't already aware of the final evolutions of one of these any of these starters, I should say. I will be revealing one of them, so. Just keep that in mind, because that's the Pokemon we're going to be working on today, because I already have all these starters done, and I think I want to start working on some final evolutions. So I already have Scorbunny's final evolution done. I won't be showing that today, but I will start on Sobbles. So let's go and get started on that. And just for the sake of letting you guys know how all this stuff works, I'm actually going to start from scratch. Normally, I wouldn't have to do everything all over again because I already have all the shaders and compositing all set up, but I'm going to actually do that all over again to show you guys what I do to actually get this to work. So what I do as a first step is actually open up a tool called SwSh Toolbox, which is a modding tool being developed that's basically is able to extract lots of different types of files, like models and textures and stuff from Switch games. Like, almost all the Switch games are compatible with this piece of software, which is pretty crazy. So if you have the Sword and Shield files with you, I'm not going to link that, by the way. That's not going to happen. If you have access to the Sword and Shield files, if you have like a cartridge dump that you have, like if you dumped it yourself from your modded Switch or something, you can use this piece of software to open up model files from the games and extract them and export them into a format that can be read by Blender. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and open up... what is the final evolution called again? I gotta look it up. Inteleon? Inteleon? It's Sobbles' final evolution. Inteleon, or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it yet. It's a new Pokemon, I don't know. But I think that's 953. This is not Pokedex order, by the way. This order is kind of like all out of whack, but I think this is the one. Let's take a look. So, yes, it is. Nice. So here's Sobbles' final evolution. So all I have to do is right-click on the model, export, and find the extract location for it. So let's go ahead and put in Inteleon for the file name. Extract the DAE file format for the model, and it will also ask if you want to export textures, which, yes, I do. Everything else is on default. And there we go. All right, and now here's the folder that I extracted everything to. The textures and the model file itself right here is all here. And I can't move on just yet. I'll actually have to modify basically all of these textures in order to get them to work with the model. So what we have to do first is go ahead and open one of these textures in your image editor of choice. I'll be using paint.net. And basically what we have to do for the majority of these textures is mirror them. And basically what I mean by that is, first we have to expand our canvas size. You're going to expand our canvas size. You're going to make it expand all the way out to the right side. So the right side's going to be blank space. We're going to double our width. And actually, let's go ahead and at least in paint.net, you have to set your colors to transparent to get this to work. So I'm going to do that again. Double the width, make sure it's expanding to the right where the anchor is towards the left. Like so. Okay. Now I'm going to select everything, copy, make a new layer, paste, flip the layer, and there you go. There's your mirror. And most textures are going to have to basically be treated like this, because otherwise the UV maps on the models are not going to line up with the textures. At least in Blender, there's no way to really configure the Blender materials or the texture coordinates to really get it to cooperate unless you actually make these changes in the textures. Yeah, the 3DS textures were like this too, by the way. But most people that use 3DS textures and 3DS models had already downloaded them from sites that already flipped them for them, so they probably don't already know. But yeah, that was the thing of the 3DS. So we're going to go ahead and just save it as the PNG and just overwrite the file. Make it easier on ourselves. And then we're just going to keep doing this. So canvas size 1024. Let's double the width. Select all, copy, new layer on top, paste, flip. I'm not sure if you can hear that engine out there. Anyway, PNG. That is not a PNG. I thought I clicked PNG. Get out of here. PNG. There we go. Overwrite. There. Now we have our shiny textures. Canvas size, double. Copy everything. Top. Flip. And so on and so forth. I'm just going to keep doing this. Once we get to the eyes, we're going to be doing something different. It's not the same exact thing. So we have their emission texture, I believe. So I'm not going to be using the emission texture, but I might as well just flip it anyway, because why not? It's not going to take much time. So again, canvas size, double the width, copy, paste on new layer, flip the layer, save as PNG. Okay, and the normals are already flipped because the normals on each side are different. So anyway, now we have the eyes. The eyes, you want to do something similar, but you don't want the anchor to be on the left. You want it to be on the center. But you do want to still double the width. So we do that. We copy everything, make a new layer, paste on new layer, and then we flip the layer. We're going to select everything again, copy it, and then we're going to copy it again. We're not going to paste yet, but we're going to move this to the left after we flipped that top layer. We're going to go ahead and move it to where it's perfectly aligned, like so. And do it again, paste, move it to the side, on the other side, and make sure it's perfectly aligned like so. Now we save that as a PNG. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, same exact steps for the other eye texture sets. Not every model has an alternate set, but this one does for some reason. I can't tell you why. I didn't make the game, but it is what it is. So expand canvas size, 512, copy, new layer on top, flip the layer, copy again, move to the left, make sure it's aligned, paste again. This side doesn't really matter that much because it's just blank textures, but you still have to make sure, even though this is all blank space, you still want to make sure that you have all this on the right side. You don't want to like get rid of it. You don't want to do something like this. You want to keep the textures in the same place where the model expects them to be. Otherwise, you have things just misaligned everywhere. So keep that in mind. And save that texture as PNG, and then we should be good to go. Okay. Now we're done with Switch Toolbox, and now we're done with our image editor. Now we're going to Blender pretty much for the rest of the video. So we're going to open up a new Blender, fresh file. I'm going to delete literally everything. I'm going to call this collection Intellion. Caps lock. Intellion. That's how you spell it. Yes. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and import the DAE file. Go ahead and navigate to where you extracted the DAE and import it as such. And it's a bit big. You know, you might want to shrink that down, right? So the amount you want to shrink this down to keep things to scale that I've found that this number has always popped up is go ahead and hit S to scale and then type this number in, 0.0254. Not 0.025. You want to put 0.0254. That's the number that has always popped up when I looked at these models from the 3DS all the way up to these new Sword and Shield models. You want to shrink that by that much. All right, now we have the model. Let's go ahead and enable viewport shading. I'm using Blender 2.81 for this, by the way. Most of the steps I'll be doing is possible in normal 2.8, but make sure you have the latest version if you don't, just in case. But yeah, all the textures are already lined up. Sometimes the eyes might be out of place. For Intellion, it doesn't seem to be the case because its eyes are all in one piece. There are some Pokemon, like all the first stage evolutions of the Gen 8 starters have a separate like iris texture that gets out of place. Well, not all the Pokemon, most of them are not like that. But anyway, what we have to do now is fix the seams. So if we were to select any point of the mesh and we hit Control L, then we will see that this model is split into a lot of segments. And we will have to fix that. Now, I wouldn't just select everything on the model and just merge everything by distance, because there are some things we actually want to keep separate, like this eyelid part. You probably want to keep that separate for the purposes of shading, which I will get into later. I'll explain that later, why we want to do that. But for obviously, we want both sides of the head to be merged together, so we'll go ahead and select the head. We also select both sides of the body, like so. You might have to do the arms. I'll have to look into that in a second. Beyond to the back side of the body, like so. Select everything there. And the legs clearly should be attached as well, so let's do that. Okay. And the feet, I'm actually going to worry about a little later. I'm going to just ignore that for now. I'll get to that. But everything else that we had selected here should be merged, pretty much. I'm going to go ahead and just double check to make sure there's no vertices merged where they shouldn't. Like, where usually I worry about the mouths where they intersect. Sometimes maybe some vertices are so close to each other that they just get merged. I can actually check the armature and find the jawbone real quick. So let's make sure the skeleton is viewable from the front. Find the jawbone if I can. The armature exportation from the SwSh Toolbox is still like a work in progress. So all these bones are like they're like infinitely small, so they're really hard to see. So where's your jawbone? I'm looking for a jaw and I'm not seeing anything. Hide. Just gonna hide all the bones that don't do anything or don't do anything I want. That isn't no. Ah, here we go. Okay. That's weird. The jaw bone is like way up here. Alright, anyway. So the mouth looks fine. Yeah, nothing's merged where they shouldn't be. Yeah, I think we're good. The inside of the mouth isn't merged, and I think that's fine. We don't need it merged. However, I actually do want to take a look at the inside of the mouth and make sure both sides are merged, like so. There we go. And now also the tongue. Don't merge the tongue with the inside of the mouth. Just keep it separate, but make sure that, like, the mirrored sides are don't have any doubles, so that the shading can work properly. Anywho, what's next? Let's make sure everything here is properly merged. That's already merged properly. That's good. This is okay. I'm gonna have to merge both sides of this. So merge. Here we go. This we probably don't need to do that. Yeah, for something like this, I wouldn't merge both sides because of how thin it is and how sharp these edges are. I would just keep them separate. The cape itself actually is the same part of the mesh, looks like. And yeah, same case. We don't want to merge that. It's thin. What about up here though? Okay, we want to merge both sides of the back side of the cape like that. Merge. Nope. Merge by distance. And do the same for this side. Merge by distance. Good. Yeah, all we're doing right now is cleaning up the model, how it was extracted from the game, to make sure it's properly shaded within Blender. That's all we're doing right now. Looks like the tail needs to be merged with the body, which I did not catch before, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Distance. We have a gap here. What is this? It's like a couple polygons. Okay, well, that's a given. Let's go ahead and just merge that. Merge by distance, like so. And we're going to do the same for this side. Merge by distance. Good. Oh, wait, is the UV scanning screwed up? No, I think that's just shading. Okay. We're good. Oh, it looks like the tail is split up into segments along the length of it as well. So let's make sure I get that. So I'm going to go ahead and merge by distance. Looks good. For this, I think I do want to merge both sides. Yeah, I'm going to merge both sides with this. Interesting how this is stacked on top. It's like very strange. Huh. Interesting way to make the model. I'm actually not sure how to deal with this. Okay, hold up. This is an interesting case. It looks like that this is like set on top of a completed mesh underneath, which is very strange. So what I'm going to do is... I don't normally do this, but I'm actually going to go and just delete these vertices that are getting hidden under here. Also these edges. Get rid of the edges. Let's see, how far up do we need to work here? Up to here, so let's hide that again. Delete these. And then just delete the rest of the length here. Okay, so we delete all of that. We'll bring back this, and then we're just going to join this mesh to the main mesh. So go ahead and select this first. Select the secondary mesh with the primary mesh second, and then hit Ctrl J. The materials don't line up, do they? Let's see, hold up. Or maybe it's the UVs. Maybe it's the UVs. This is getting a little bit more technical than I was predicting. So let's go ahead and open up the shaders. I can see why it's doing this. I can see why. So it's going to actually... No. Let's undo with that merge. Let's copy this material, make it a new material. Make it like tail fins. I'm actually not sure what this is called. I'm just gonna call it tail fin. No. There we go. This material is not the same as this material anymore. Now we're just going to merge that. And now we can just control the mapping for this. So if you have the node wrangler enabled, if you don't, you go into preferences, you go into add-ons, search for node wrangler and make sure that's enabled. Make sure when you have that enabled, you can select the texture node in your material editor. Select that, hit Control T, and then there you go. It'll give you some texture mapping nodes. We actually don't want this specific UV node, so we're going to go ahead and bring this one in, which is the one we want. We bring that to the vector node. And is it this one? No, it's that one. There we go. Okay, there we go. Now they're probably the same mesh, and now the UVs line up. The main reason I'm doing this is because I want this to be merged with that, and I couldn't do that if they weren't part of the same object. And if they weren't merged, the shading would be very strange because there'd be seams everywhere on this part. Go ahead and merge by distance here, and then there we go. Everything's merged now. Nice, nice, nice. There's a little texture seam here, but again, it's not like you'll be seeing it up close. So, okay. Anything else that I need to address? All right, the feet. All right, let's get to the feet. So it looks like, just based on how Intellion's feet are shaped, the bottoms of the feet are very flat, and it kind of has a sharp transition to the sides of the feet here. So I'm probably not going to merge them because it's kind of a sharp angle. So I'm going to keep that separate. But I do want to select this. In this. No. I do want to make sure I select these though. Not the toes, but just these without the bottoms. And I'm going to go ahead and select it with the main mesh. And I'm going to go ahead and merge by distance so that everything's all one mesh now. Here, down to here, to the toes. Alright, so what I want to do now is pay attention to how these areas of the toes are split into segments. It'll be important to remember this so that we can actually reapply how this is segmented. So it looks like in between each toe, there's a face here that's all on its own, and we actually want to keep that for the most part. Since both sides of the feet are intersecting with each other in this T-pose, which is kind of annoying to work with, but I can manage. Just make sure there's no obvious like vertices that are too close to each other. It's where they get merged to the other side. Hopefully that doesn't happen. We should be fine though. So let's go and merge by distance. Select everything. Like everything. Everything. So including you guys. Okay, not the bottoms, but that part. There we go. Merge. And we're going to do the same for this side. Now, we're going to go ahead and go to edge select mode and select all the edges that were edge splits before that are important to remember, because the toes were on their own segment, but we actually want them to be connected to the whole feet. But we also want like the sharp edges in between the toes to still be segmented, just for the sake of shading and all that. So I don't think I want to select the tops here. I think I want that to be smooth, even though the angle's kind of sharp. We don't need it to be too complicated down here, but we do need to separate these. Once you have it all selected, you hit Control E, and then you go for edge split. There we go. And we do the same for the other side. I think the feet are good to go. Yeah, looks good. Looks good. Okay. I think we're good now. I think that's all. I think that's everything, right? Let's check the hands. I think the hands... Okay, no, the hands are not good to go. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and check some reference from the game itself to make sure I know where the outlines are being placed. Okay, I put up some gameplay footage from YouTube just to see how it's shaded in the game, to make sure I know where the outline placements are. It doesn't look like there's an outline right at the shoulders, so that's good to know. Yeah, it looks like it's all one complete model, so I'll just merge everything on the arm itself. Yeah. Oh! Oh, I see. Okay. I'm glad I checked this because the tail fins that were there before, they look like they are temporary. They might only show up in like battle animation. Okay, that's good to know. I'll go ahead and revert those changes. I can just undo everything I just did, and I'll just redo everything. That's not a big deal. But yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I should have checked the source. Good to know. Okay, I'll do that. Anything else I need to take note of? I think we're good. All right, let's go back. Okay, I'm back, and I went ahead and reverted the changes. Yeah, I'm glad I checked, because I was about to make a pretty big mistake regarding, like, its design, pretty much. Okay, so let's go ahead and resume what I was going to be doing. And that was to merge pretty much the entire arms and hands together. So, like, pretty much everything. I don't even think I have to worry about the creases inside here. It's smooth enough. Maybe. I'll look into it. Is it even... No. Okay, so I won't worry about it. I'm going to merge literally everything on the arms with the main body. So make sure I select everything. Yeah. Got the other side too. Good. Anything else? Everything looks good. Let's merge. No, it's like merge. Merge. So I'm going to merge. There we go. Okay, I think we're good now. That was the model cleanup, essentially. Let's go ahead and reset the armature pose. There we go. All right, so one more thing we need to do with the model is actually go into the shaders again and go ahead and take a look at all your texture nodes. People, okay. We got some barking out there. Don't worry about that. Okay, anyway. You want to make sure that instead of linear, we have this set to closest. And the reason we do that is so that the pixel interpolation between each pixel is completely sharp. There's no like filters or anything. It's just very sharp, very clearly defined pixels, which is how the 3DS did their textures. Like all the textures were never like filtered or anything. They were always blocky like that. So we do that for all the textures. Go ahead into the eye. Let's go ahead and set that to closest. Now that's doing that. And now we have another one. Is this... I have a feeling I just do assign this body material that was originally assigned to the eyelids to this. Because I think they all have the same texture, and I don't think I'll be using different materials for that, so we're good. Alright, okay. Alright. So everything is set up for the model that I know of. Maybe I'll go back to it in case I missed something, but we should be good now. So let's go ahead and set up a quick camera and a sun lamp real quick. So go ahead and go into the camera. Position the camera as you like. I'm going ahead and just use the lock camera to view feature just to position it the way I want it to. Generally, I tend to use pretty tight focal lengths. Let's make sure that the entire model is in view, including the tail. Let's see. Just tilt the camera down like this. Make sure there's no Y tilt. Okay. We're not going to be doing posing today, by the way. Like, we're just going to keep it into T-pose. Nothing... Like, because the armatures from Sword and Shield are still a work in progress, they're still infinitely small, and they're kind of hard to work with. And there's no animation importing from the games yet, either. So, again, we're not going to worry about that yet. We're just going to do T-posing. I didn't mention this yet, but we're actually going to be doing all of this in cycles. This entire process is being done entirely in the ray traced based cycles, and technically I think this can be done in Eevee, but I haven't tried, and I would rather not, because I prefer cycles pretty much wholeheartedly, but that's just me. If you can figure out how to do this process after we're done with this cycles tutorial, if you want to like try to apply it to Eevee and see if it's possible, you are welcome to do so. But I warn you, I've only done this through cycles, and I don't know if it'll work nearly as well in Eevee. So anyway, I'm going to be doing this through cycles, and you probably won't need more than 48 samples, so here's what we got so far. No lighting. In fact, we actually really don't want any background light. So I'm going to make sure that the world lighting is set to 0. No background, so that it would be pitch black, like so. Like there's no light at all. And the only source of light we want is from the sun. Okay. I'm going to turn off that. Okay. So we want to angle this sun. Want to angle it so that it's lighting up a lot of the front of the model. Like this, probably. Something like this. the one thing we're going to do to the sun lamp, and the only thing we're going to do, is actually change this angle. The angle is basically the size of the sun in the sky, basically. I think this value is what the sun normally is to the sky in real life, but we're not doing that. We're going to make this 180 times larger than the sun. Make that 90. The main purpose of this is so that light is able to wrap around more of the model when we get to the actual like compositing process, to where we actually make it look like it's from the 3DS. And I found that having a larger sun just makes that way easier to work with, making sure light is able to wrap around more of the model. So now if we were to hit render, and this will be our result. One thing I want to make sure I change real quick is actually make sure filmic is turned off. We want to go back to standard, which is not normal. We normally want filmic for pretty much anything in cycles. But when it comes to mimicking the actual like 3DS look, we don't want filmic, we want standard. We don't want anything fancy, just keep it standard. Okay, and you also might notice that I'm not going to be using freestyle. Freestyle is probably what most people would turn to get an outline looking when it comes to like applying outlines to models. And honestly, I don't like freestyle that much. It's very annoying to work with because it's kind of limiting, and it's not very clean with its outline placements, and it doesn't look that great. So everything regarding like the shading of the 3DS, including the outlines, is done through compositing, and that's where we're going to be spending most of our time when it comes to like actually making it look like the 3DS. Anyway, back to this. Let's go ahead and set this to transparent background. So you want the background to be transparent. Like so. And I think this is the last thing I need to do, and it's, where is it? Okay, it's right here. If we were to zoom in on the model, you'll see that there's a nice anti-aliasing effect applied to the model. We don't want this. We want to make it look worse, because that's how the 3DS was, and you know what? That's fine by me. So what we want to do is actually lower this pixel filter to as low as it will go, which is this. You want it to be set to this. So once we do that, we hit render again, we'll have this nice little stair-stepping look that the 3DS would be known for. Nice. All right, so we're partly there. We've got the textures configured so that they look very pixelated. We have the actual anti-aliasing and the pixel filters of the render itself set so that, you know, there's lots of stair-stepping. I think that's about it when it comes to setting that stuff up. I think the rest that we need to do... No, I lied. We still need to set up some passes. The passes we do not need the z-depth. We need the normal. We need the object index. Most models actually probably won't be using object index, but actually the object index might actually not be needed. We'll see, but some models might need the object index, and I'm still going to configure the compositor to use the object index, even if this model does not use it. Let's see, what else? I might as well have denoising data on. I'm probably not going to use denoising, we'll see. I'm actually going to see. And then down here, we want to have direct diffuse pass, and we want the color diffuse pass. We should be good now. I don't think I'm lying anymore. Okay, so let's go to the compositor now. So let's go ahead and give that another render so that we have all those passes. All right. Go to compositing. I'm gonna go ahead and set this timeline dope sheet down here to image editor, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to this timeline down here. Bring that up. Go to render results. And there we go. We got our render result down here and our compositor up top. All right, so for most of this compositing, we aren't going to worry about the denoising stuff. I'm probably not going to bother with that too much. I just wanted to have these here just in case I wanted to experiment with something. But we're going to have diffuse color, diffuse direct, the index object, normal, alpha, and the image. Now we actually get to the fun stuff. If you consider compositing nodes fun, but you know, you're gonna have to live with it. So let's go ahead and give this a lot of space. I'm gonna move these apart quite a bit because you're gonna be needing the space. So what we're gonna be doing first is doing the shading itself. We're gonna do the outlines afterwards. So what we're gonna be doing first is using this diffuse direct pass, which is this basically. There's no color, there's just shading, and that's exactly what we need. So we're going to insert a colorant node, put it right there, and then we're just going to push the white all the way up to here until approximately around where it starts to like bleed. We don't want it to bleed, but we want it to be to where it's not too dark. This is essentially brightening up the render so that there's more color range to where it's as bright as possible without fearing that it's going to start bleeding, or the color's going to peak, basically. So that's our first color ramp. Next color ramp. So for that one, we're using the linear interpolation. For this one, we're going to be using the constant interpolation. So instead of using linear interpolation where it's a gradual transition between dark and light, there's a very abrupt transition from dark to light. The only thing I changed was the interpolation. If I go back to linear, it's nice and smooth again. Constant, it's like this. So this is how we're going to be doing the stair-step shading. I'm not sure what to really call it, but it's basically self-shading, essentially. And we control it exclusively through this color ramp right here. Like this color ramp is what does it. Let's go ahead and configure it. We're going to need how many? We're going to need 6 of these nodes. I already have some values worked out. We want this white's value to be around 0.64. The second one down will be a bit darker. Let's get the hex value that I have. I'm just going to copy what I have before. This is a slightly darker white. It's still pretty much white, it's just slightly darker. This value is at about 0.384. Like so. And if you look closely, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this on video, but we already got a nice stair-stepping effect already, where we have this very white highlight, and then we have a slightly less white, very, very light gray here. And we're going to keep working our way down. Next value is significantly darker. This is at 0.241. And we're going to go ahead and give this a darker gray. It's still light gray, but it's not that white anymore. It's very gray now. Okay, so it's starting to come together. Let's go ahead and move on to the next step. So again, this is a darker gray. And we're going to move this to, what is it, 0.143. Okay. And then this last one is 0.000001. It's like basically right after the black there. And then we are going to set this gray, what is it? So this, like so. Okay, so there's our cell shading. It looks like we might need more samples for this cape we have in the back. Even though we are going to be rendering this a lot smaller, where the noise won't be nearly as prominent, I think I'll just go ahead and bump the sample count by double. I'll give that a shot. It's still pretty rough, but I think I have an idea. I was thinking I might want to try this, and I think I'll go ahead and just try this now. I'm going to go ahead and try to denoise this diffuse, because this is the only noisy part of this whole process, is this node right here. So let's go ahead and bring in our denoise filter, which is only in 2.81, by the way. It's not in Blender 2.8. It's only in Blender 2.81. Just let you know. So this diffuse goes right here in the image. Our albedo is not going to be used. We're just going to use plain white because there's no color. There's no color in this. We don't need the albedo. And then we're going to go ahead and use the denoising normals here. And then we're going to plug this in here and see if that does anything. Okay, that's kind of a bust. Okay, we are not using denoising. The problem is that the denoising kind of messes with the edges, and it does this. I could try moving the gray out a bit more so that it doesn't do that, but then we're just gonna have black spots on the model, and actually that's something I want to avoid. So that I'm not gonna use it then. Maybe there's a way to implement it that's cleaner, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. So no denoising, just bring this back like so. And again, I wouldn't worry too much about the noise anyway, because again, the model's going to be shrunken down significantly. If you have to, you can just increase the sample count. So I'm going to go ahead and try that again. Try another double of the sample count, see how that goes. Okay, so this is what we got before, and this is after. There's nowhere near as much dithering along this line here. Of course, there's still noise, but I think that's tolerable. It's perfectly fine. You don't need it to be perfectly clean. It's fine if there's a little bit of noise, especially when it's on something this flat. Like, you don't want to worry about it too much. Now, we have the shading done. Now we move on to actually applying it to the color of the model. So now we want to use the diffuse color. And what that is, let's bring this to the output, is literally just color. There's literally no shading. It's just color and nothing else. So let's go ahead and start using that. Let's bring that back. We're going to go ahead and input a mix color node. And then let's bring the diffuse color all the way down here to the bottom. And then we're going to, let's see, I think I want to flip this actually. Yeah. And then set this to multiply. Okay. Now, if you ask me, everything's a bit too dark, so we actually want to move this down to 0.5. 0.5 is what I found to look best. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. So it looks good, I think. And what I think I'll do is actually insert a middle node in this color ramp, the first color ramp we did, and then move this towards the darkness a bit so that the face is more well lit. About here should do well. Yeah, okay. Not too much, but enough to where it's a bit more well lit. I can hardly even notice the noise. It's a bit here, but that's fine. Yeah, we're good. This is looking good so far. We're getting there. So I think we're pretty much done with the actual shading. I do want to configure the alpha though. So the next thing we're going to do is insert a set alpha node, which is in converter, set alpha. We're going to put that in between the multiply and the output. And then we're going to grab the alpha input from here, the alpha pass, to here. And there you go. We got our alpha channel back. Everything's looking clean. And just for the sake of organization, let's go ahead and just clump these up a little bit more. We're going to go ahead and add a... where is it? Oh, it's on layout frame. Okay, we're going to make a new frame. I'm going to move everything into the frame by... I think we select everything, and we select the frame last, and I hit Control P. That's it. Okay, and then we're going to name this shading. So this is what carries the shading. We're just going to have that in its own category. Nice and organized. I actually typically don't use these, but for the sake of the video, I might as well, just so it's easier to understand. All right, so now when it comes to making outlines, it gets a bit crazier. Just a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and select everything and make a group out of it, so it's in its own node. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to go ahead and make some new group inputs. So first, I actually want to make a normal inputs, and the only way I think I can do that is just not this, but like, yeah, I think what I'm going to do is insert a vector curves and then just connect that to that so that we have a normal input. So we're just going to call that normal. And the rest of the inputs can just be gray values. So let's see. This will be diffuse direct. This is going to be diffuse color. We have our alpha. I think I want to move alpha up actually because it's like one of the first ones. Let's move that right up to the top. Oh, that's the wrong alpha. That one's at the top. Then we have index object. I think normal's higher up. Let's move that up. Index object up. I think that's it for the actual inputs. And now we're going to actually make some sliders for ourselves to use. So we're going to have one called outline darkness. Going to have another one called shading darkness. And then one called exposure. So before we go to the outlines, actually, I want to go ahead and bring in a brightness and contrast right here. Make sure it's in this box. I want to bring in the exposure to brightness. So basically what that does is with the exposure connected to the brightness, I can control more of how the model is shaded, how bright it is. Basically, it's basically affecting brightness. I just call it exposure because this makes more sense to me, even though it's more like brightness. But yeah, that's basically what it's doing. Nothing too crazy. Before we get to these, I want to go ahead and just connect the rest of the nodes. So we connect normal to normal, and then index object to index object, and these will just remain as sliders. Go to move that closer, and move that closer. Before we tab in back into our group, we're going to go ahead and call this Pokemon 3DS shading. That's what it's called. And then we're going to tab in. And then we're going to go ahead and set up the shading darkness. So all we're going to do is bring the shading darkness value, connect it to the multiply factor, and then tab back out, and then set the shading darkness to 0.5 as it was before. And then there you go. You can just affect the shading darkness from these simple sliders here. All right, now we're going to do outlines. Finally. So first what we're going to do is make a new frame. We're going to call this frame by hitting F2. I didn't say this before, but if you hit F2 on your frame, you can rename it. We're going to rename it outline. First things first, we're going to bring in an inverts node, and then we're going to bring in the outline darkness. We have to invert this value because normally the higher you go, the brighter it will be, but we want to invert that value. So since it's called outline darkness, we want the higher value to be darker, so we invert that. So that's what that's doing. Then I'm going to have a mix color node. right next to it, and then we're going to connect it to the top, and then we're going to set this to 2/3. I'm going to set this to pitch black, and yeah, all this is doing is basically darkening the overall input value from that slider, just a little bit. And I'm going to move this slightly over, and move this over here, and now we're going to go ahead and make a new filter. Go to filter, and then there's another option for filter, so it's kind of like double filter, but hey, whatever, that's just how it is. And then we're going to make this filter Laplace. That's important. Very important. We're going to drag the normal down to the image input of the Laplace. I'm just going to move this back so I can actually easily do this. What this does, let's go ahead and bring this to the output. This is what it's doing. If we take a look at the actual normal for a second, this is what the normals actually look like. And this is what's being brought into the filter. We bring the normals into the filter, and then after the filter goes through, this is what we get. And you might be seeing where we're going with this. So what we're doing is we're using the normals of the world, of the scene, and we're running it through a filter that basically does edge detection. Obviously, you can see the edge detection along like the silhouette of the model, but it does edge detection literally everywhere. You can see individual polygons. It's detecting all the edges from the polygons. We're going to filter that out in a second. We're going to clean that up. Don't worry about that. You'll get to that. We're going to do that right now, actually. Go ahead and make a new color ramp and set that right here. And once you do that, you can immediately tell that the color's gone because we're using a color ramp that only has black and white. So which is what we want. We don't want the normal colors to be part of the actual outline. So black and white is perfectly fine. And then what we're going to do with this is set this to constant. We're going to bring this white value down to 0.126. And then we have a nice clean outline. Most of it's pretty clean. I think the thinner ones are fine. I might not look into that later, but I think we're good. And this is why we wanted to be mindful of the edge splits. So if we go back to what the normals look like, if we merged these vertices around the eyelids, this wouldn't be a hard edge, it would be smoothed out. So it's less likely to be picked up by the edge detection, and the outline would likely to be a lot thinner or just not there at all. So that's why we make sure our edge splits are in the right places, and that's also why we made sure things were merged where they needed to be. Like, for example, around the center of the body and the head, there's always like a center seam along the entire body of all the Pokemon models. We want to make sure that's all put together and merged. And essentially, a rule of thumb is wherever you put an edge split is where an outline will tend to form. If you put an edge split around like a flat surface where there's like barely any bends, it probably won't be picked up by the edge detection. But I do have solutions for that, and I will get into that later, at the end. Not right now, because I don't think this model is actually going to need it. Not right now, because I don't think this model is actually going to really need that. But I will at least show you guys how to add some outlines to places where they're a bit more flat. Yeah, I'll get into that. And let's bring this back. Here's our outline. I'll explain why in a bit, but we need to make these outlines larger. We need the thickness of the outlines to be larger. So how we're going to do that is actually bring in a filter blur node. And we're going to make it blur 3 by 3. Because normally, if we don't blur it, on average, the thickness of these outlines are 2 pixels wide. I'll explain why in a bit, but we want the outlines to be, on average, to be 8 pixels thick. And we're going to do this by doing 3 by 3. And you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pixels here. So we fixed our thickness, but now we have to address the blur. We don't want the blur, we just wanted the extra thickness. So we bring in another color ramp, our best friend, and we set this to constant. And then we just bring in this all the way down to 0.00006 zeros, I believe, and then 1. And then there you go, there's your 8 pixel thick outline. Very, very, very large, and I'll explain. Give me a chance to explain it. I'm not going to get into that yet. I'll explain it in a bit. All right, now we're going to go back up here to what we were doing before. I'm going to go ahead and make an alpha over node. We're going to drag this. I think that's that, right? Yeah, we're going to drag this down to the bottom input, and then we're going to put this to the top. So what we have now is the shaded model on a gray background, which is what we want when it comes to calculating the outline colors. Let's go and tab out real quick because I forgot to change the setting. The outline darkness I found is 0.85 to be the best. And you'll also notice after changing that value that the darkness of the background changed, which is relevant. It's important. And then we're going to take this node that we have and make a new blur node. We're just going to duplicate what we have down there using Shift D. We're going to change the blur type to Ketchum. And then we're going to make the blur radius a lot larger, 32 by 32. And then we're just going to have this blurry mess. But trust me, this is going to be useful. But first, we still have a few nodes to go. We're going to make a new node, mix color node. I'm going to bring this to the top input. And then for the factor, we're going to bring the outline darkness to the factor of that mix node. And then we're going to change this color to pitch black. And then we're going to bring this back up to here to see what we're doing. And as you can see, we have a very dark, very blurry image of our model. And that's important because we're going to be using this color information, this blurred color information to influence the color of the outline. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to make a new color mix node, and we might as well just duplicate what we have here. We're going to make this top input pitch black. We're going to bring this color ramp. This is our outline, by the way. This color ramp at the end here, this is our outline. We're going to bring that to the factor, and we're going to bring this down to the bottom input. And then to see what we have, we're going to bring this to the output node, and this is what we have. This is our colored outline. The Pokemon 3DS games, they all had outlines that were colored based on the proximity of the colors on the model. And this is basically what this is doing. And when we blur the model, that's basically what's allowing the entire outline to be influenced by the proximity of what's around it. And I found that changing the blur to Ketchum made the color outlines more prominent and made them look better. So that's why I'm using Ketchum there. But if you were to change this blur to 0, you see that the outline isn't fully reached. It's not ideal. We want the entire outline to be influenced by the color, and it's not going to happen unless we blur it. So that's what we do. We blur the entire color so that we get the entire outline to be colored. Ooh, I'm going to lose my voice by the end of this, I swear. My voice is getting brutally slammed today. Holy crap. The last node that we need is another set alpha node. So that would be in converter, set alpha. We're going to set that here. And then we're going to drag our outline again to set alpha. And then there we go. We have our outline on a transparent background. And then all we have to do now is alpha over. And then we're going to merge our shading with our outline. So we're going to drag our shading to the top input of the alpha over. And then the outline goes into the bottom inputs of the alpha over node. And then there you go. This is our final result before we shrink the model down. So in order to shrink our model down in the compositor, we're going to add, using Shift-A, go to Distort, and then we're going to add Scale. Put that right in between the outputs and the alpha over. And then we want to scale our image down by 8. So we do this by inputting 1/8 on both axes. 1/8. Don't typo. There we go. And now we have our cute little model down here. Now you might be asking, why? Why are we making the render so large only to shrink it down by 8 times? Why are we doing this? Well, basically in a nutshell, it's because of the edge detection. If we render too small, the edge detection is going to be very, very inaccurate, and it'll create lines where you don't want them. The larger the base resolution is, the better your outlines will be. And I found that having 8 times pixel thickness, only to shrink it down by 8 times later, to have 1 pixel thickness, gives the best results. So I would say that this model is actually a pretty good scale for Showdown, which is like a Smogon's battle simulator. But for the sake of this video, I'm actually going to go ahead and just make this a bit larger. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new slot, and I'm going to increase the resolution. I'm going to make it 160% and just render it again. Okay, I gave it another render at a slightly larger resolution just so it's more clear to you guys what's going on. And again, this is a pretty good resolution for our 3DS screen, honestly. Now there's one thing I actually do want to add to the model's materials that I actually forgot to add. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to layout and go back to editing my materials. What we're going to do first is actually make a group for the material. And we don't need every input here. We want everything to be shared between all the models, the material to be shared, except for the base color. So all we're going to do is delete literally every input except for the base color. Okay, and then we're going to make this 3DS material 1, because there might be other types of materials you might want to use with different types of Pokemon. Not every Pokemon spawn can use the same material, so I might as well just name it 1, just in case. And then we're going to copy this material, just Control-C, and then we're going to bring this to the other materials that are present on your model. So we're going to just delete this, and then just bring this over like so. And then we're going to do this for the eye material as well. Bring that and that. There we go. and then tab in back to this group, and then we're going to go ahead and add a fernell node. By the way, this fernell thing I'm going to be using, I'm going to be showing you guys, not every model is going to be using this. If you think your Pokemon or model doesn't need the fernell effects, usually the fernell effect will imply shininess or like a reflective Pokemon that have like really smooth skin and whatnot. Like a lot of water types are like this. So I'm going to be using the fernell node here to add a nice little fernell. You'll see what I mean if you don't know what this is. So I'm going to go ahead and change the IOR to 1.6. After that, we make a new color ramp. Again, it's our best friend. We use that a lot here. And then we're just going to move this black part out slightly. Actually, no. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and put this into the color of the material temporarily. Only temporarily, just so we can see what we're doing. So the reason I'm moving this black part is so that the fernell doesn't affect the whole entire model. I only want it to affect the edges, so I'm moving that out slightly, like this. Like this. If it was still at the very edge, fernell would be affecting the entire model, which is not what we want. We only want it to affect the edges. And we're also going to bring this white down over here, closer to the black. Not all the way, otherwise it would just be too sharp of a transition. But we want it to be brighter sooner around the edges, because the renders are going to be pretty small. So having it like this will be better, I think. Around here will work. So yeah, having this in the base color will help us see what we're doing. So basically what fernell is that the sharper the angle is of the polygon compared to the camera, the brighter it gets. So as you can see, the faces that are facing directly towards the camera are completely dark, and the ones that are like facing at an extreme angle are very bright. That's what fernell is in a nutshell, and that's the effect we're going to be using. Let's go ahead and just bring the base color back to the model, like so. And now what we're going to do is insert a color mix node. Let's move these back a bit. And we're going to drag this fernell output after the color ramp down to a factor. And then we're going to make a hue saturation node, bring the base color into that, and then bring the hue saturation output into this input in the mix node. And for right now, it doesn't look different because it's not different, because this hue saturation node isn't affecting the color. So it's basically the same thing as connecting the base color to the base color of the actual shader. It's like the same exact thing. But if we were to, say, increase the value, aka brightness, of this texture, set it to 2.5, we have a fernell effect now. So if we were to look at the head is a good place to look. Let's go back to 1. There's no fernell effect. Set it to 2.5. Now we have a fernell effect. And the reason we're doing this purely on the color spectrum, not affecting the actual material other than the color, is because we want to go compositing, because we want the diffuse color to be the one that has the fernell effect. So if we take a look at what we have right now, I haven't re-rendered anything, so everything's completely flat. We want the fernell to be on this pass. We want it to be on this pass, just for the sake of simplicity, without overcomplicating anything. So let's re-render. All right, rendering is done, and just through the diffuse color alone, we have our fernell effect, which is what I want. I wanted this. And if we were to reconnect this to the composite outputs, this is what we would get. Bring it back down. At this resolution, it's not very prominent, but it is there. We have a fernell effect very subtly right here. And the larger your render resolution is, the more obvious it'll be. But yeah, if we were to go back to our previous render, this is what it's like without the fernell. And here it is with the fernell. Without, with, without, with, without, with. So for the most part, we're done. But some models might require object index, which will allow you to control where the outlines are regardless of the actual shape of the model itself. So for this model, we actually don't really need this. We don't need object index. Everything seems to be checking out just fine, but might as well. So let's say I wanted an outline along this loop here. Let's select this entire loop. Let's say I wanted an outline right here. If I were to edge split, I wouldn't get an outline, because the normals wouldn't be significantly different enough to actually be picked up by the edge detection. We actually still want to edge split, but we want to do another step. And after the edge split, we want to split the model into 2 separate objects. So how you do that is select one of the sides, we hit P on the keyboard, and then we separate by selection. So now they are their separate objects. And then before we continue, make sure that in relations down here, we give these 2 objects that we just split their own pass index. So this is in the object properties, and we want to give them their own pass index. So this bottom half I gave, it will be pass index 1, And then this top half will be pass index 2. And everything else will be on 0. Everything else is on 0. And now that we're done with that, we can go back to compositing, make a new slot, might as well, and then let's go ahead and give this a re-render. Alright, I gave it a re-render, and nothing's apparently different, because again, edge splitting alone will not affect the normals enough for edge detection to be detected. So even though I made an edge split right here along the belly, that it just doesn't show up. The outline's not there. So what we do instead is, after we made them like a separate object, we have to add some new nodes to the outline section we have here. It's not too many nodes, but there are some we have to add. So first we'll need an ID mask node. So let's go into converter, ID mask. Let's bring it into our little border here. Move that down a little bit, maybe a bit more down here. And then let's have this set to index 1. Let's make another one, duplicate that down, make this index 2. And now we're going to make Laplace nodes for each of these, like so. And now let's start connecting some things, because I haven't done that yet. Let's go ahead and bring this index object down to here, this ID mask, and the same ID object down to here. And then let's bring index object down again to the second one, like so. And then let's connect these to the image. Okay, so let's see what we're doing here. So here's what we have. Let's go ahead and bring that to the output. So here's our bottom half of the model. And we also have a nice little outline here. And let's also bring in this up here. And we have our top half of the model. And again, we have the same outline right here. We're going to go ahead and merge these two outlines together using a color mix RGB node. Have them both connected like this. It doesn't matter the order, really. I'm going to set this to lighten. And then there we go. We have two nodes connected to each other like so. And then there we go. We have these two outlines connected to each other. And we have our outline that we wanted, even though the model doesn't need it there. But this is just for the sake of example. If we want an outline here, this is how we do it. And now we make a colorant node just for this. And then instead of this number for this white value, we'll change this to 0.25 so that its thickness is consistent to what we have up here. And now we're going to go ahead and move these more this way. I'm going to move these more this way. These more this way. I'm going to make a gap right here. We're going to copy this lighten node. I'm going to put that here. I'm going to connect the other one on the bottom to the bottom. And then if we were to see what we're doing with this node, let's connect that to the output. We have all of our outline data right here. Everything's merged, including our new outline that we made by splitting them into separate objects using object indexing, outline, edge detection, merging them all together, and this is our end result. So now if we were to connect everything, so we have our final render, we have our outline right here. That's what we're working for. Obviously this model doesn't need it, but if you have a model that needs an outline and you can't get an outline there in any other way, that's how you do it. And if you need more object splits, what you do is, after making a new object and giving it an index of 3 or more, you make more nodes, make this 3, and you make a new lighten node like this, connects the third one to the bottom input, you drag this up, connect the first lighten to the second lighten on the top, and then we bring the second one to the colorant. This isn't going to affect my render because I only have 2 objects being instanced. Oh, also make sure to connect the index object down here like this. There we go. And that's how you would do it. And you keep doing that the more you add. You keep stacking lightens and more ID masks. You just keep doing that the more you have. But obviously my model doesn't need it. This Intellion doesn't need it at all. But again, I thought I might as well show you. And I think that's it. So let me go ahead and just merge these back together. So I'm just going to select this loop and merge my distance. There we go. So that's it. There's literally nothing else I can show right now. Because I'm still waiting on animation parsing to be done in Sword and Shield, to where I can actually import the animations into Blender, apply to the armature so I can actually make renders using the game animations directly from the game, but I can't do that right now, so I have nothing else to show. I hope you guys enjoyed. This was quite tiring. My voice is basically about to die, so yeah. I haven't done one of these tutorials in a while. Last time I did this, I was using Freestyle, which is, don't use Freestyle. Don't do it. Just don't. Just use the compositor. It gives way better results. Way better. It even supports intersections. Freestyle does not support intersections, and Freestyle can't do other things as well. It's just don't use Freestyle. Don't do it. Like I said, I hope you guys found this to be educational, informative, and I will see you guys soon, hopefully.